So hello guys, welcome to a new video of ISC Economics class 11, and in today's video we are going to continue the remaining portion of our second chapter. Now in the last lecture we had talked about the basic concepts of economics or the foundation of economics, the basic elements which every student needs to know, and not only a student, anybody who is associated with the word economics or the subject economics, he must be knowing these things. So in that lecture we had mainly talked about three concepts. One was which was human want, which was a very important concept, as we had talked about what is a human want, what are the types of human want, and what are the characteristics of human want. After that we had talked about consumption, that consumption, what is basically consumption. We talked that consumption is the using of goods and services manufactured in an economy. The goods and services which are used in an economy, if they are being used, means if they are being used in the real life, then that is known as consumption. And after that we talked the opposite of consumption, which is known as production, means to make those goods and services, that is known as production. Now in today's lecture we are also going to talk about the other concepts which are very important, and above all, these concepts which we are going to talk about, the one which I am going to explain as of now is the most important one. Why? Because it is a very important concept, or it is a very main concept of economics. So the concept which I am going to talk about today is utility. Okay, utility. Now what is the meaning of utility? So in normal language we means that how much something is useful, that is the utility of that thing. Like we say, what is the utility of these things, means if this thing is helpful or not, and if it is helpful, then how is it helpful. So in normal terms utility means the usage or how much something is useful. But if we talk in the words of economics, then utility means the satisfaction which arises from one consumption of a commodity. Now I'll explain you this in very details a few minutes later, but now I would like to discuss some basic examples with you which would clear you that what I am basically talking about. Now suppose it is a very hot summer afternoon. Okay, you have come home from school, you are fully drenched in sweat which is oozing from each and every corner of your body. Now what is the thing which you look for the most when you are feeling very hot, or you have sweat oozing from each and every corner of your body? Then what is the thing which you need the most? I guess a cold drink. So if you are very thirsty, you are very much I would say you are very tired, you are very thirsty, you are fully, I would say, means I would say you are fully, what should I, sometimes I don't get words to use. In simple language you might have understood what I'm trying to say. On a very hot afternoon, you came home from school and you are very thirsty, you are very tired, you are, and what is the thing which you want the most? So that is a bottle of cold drink, or not cold drink, then also a bottle of cold water. Cold water means that freezing water. Now what happens when you drink that water? You get a satisfaction. Maza aaya. So what is this? This is a satisfaction which you are getting. Now opposite to this, if it is a very freezing morning, okay, and like you might be having schools in the winter time. So when you go to school in the winter time, when you wake up in the morning at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, it is freezing cold. Then at that time what do you need the most? You need a cup of tea, or you need a cup of coffee. So when you are feeling freezing cold, and after that when you drink that coffee, or you drink that tea, then what is the first word which comes into your mind? Oh, what a relief. So what is this? What you have gained? You have gained a satisfaction. You are satisfied. Now, apart from talking just about eatables, now if I talk about uh, like you are feeling, means your room was very hot. Okay, now suddenly if you enter into a AC room from a non AC atmosphere, you get freezing, means you get a very satisfying situation. You get a very satisfying satisfaction. So what is basically that satisfaction? That satisfaction is nothing but utility. So utility, now I hope I have made you understood what is satisfaction, though although not utility, but I have made you understand what is satisfaction. Like you were very thirsty and you were feeling very hot, so you went home and you drank a glass of freezing cold water. You get a sensation, ah. So this is what we call satisfaction. In the same manner, on a cold winter morning, when you have tea or coffee, you also get the same feeling. So this is what we call satisfaction, and this satisfaction in economics is nothing but utility. Utility means how much satisfying is something. Okay, so if I write the definition of utility, so that, just a second, please. Now if I write the definition of utility, then what is it going to be? It is going to be the total satisfaction, from the consumption of a commodity, or simply from a commodity. So yes, it is what we call utility. The total amount of satisfaction which you get, that is known as utility. Okay, like you had a I have given you the examples. So utility means the total satisfaction from a commodity, or more specifically from the consumption of a commodity. Okay, so now I have made you understood what is utility. Now in some other book or some other place, you might be seeing that how much something is useful, that is known as its utility. So if we talk in that manner or if we talk in this manner, the thing is the same. Why? Because if something is useful, then it will automatically give us a satisfaction, and that satisfaction is nothing but utility. So घूम फिर के बस satisfaction पे ही आ जाना है. So utility is basically the total amount of satisfaction which you get from a commodity. Okay, now if we talk about the features of utility, okay, so the first feature which we get of utility is that utility is subjective. Now what does this mean? Okay, now see, if you drink a cup of tea, you will get satisfaction from that tea. But if you don't, but if someone drinks tea who has never ever tasted tea, so his satisfaction will totally be different from you. Okay, now in the same manner, some people drink alcohol, but you don't drink alcohol. So if you are made to drink alcohol, you won't get any kind of satisfaction. So satisfaction varies from one person to another. It totally depends on the person who is being concerned. If you consider alcohol, then a person who drinks alcohol, for him the alcohol will give satisfaction, for him the alcohol will give utility. But if you consider yourself, you won't get any kind of satisfaction from alcohol. So alcohol is subjective. It varies from person to person. Okay, now the second one is that utility cannot be measured. You cannot measure utility. Non measurable. Now, what does this word non-measurable mean? Non-measurable means like if you wanted to calculate the length of a table, you can calculate that. If you want to calculate the mass of a object, you can calculate that, but you can never calculate the amount of utility which you gain from a substance. Like I told you that if you drink a glass of water on a very hot afternoon, you are going to get utility, but you cannot but you can but you cannot measure that utility. Why? Because that is a qualitative thing, that is not a quantitative thing. You cannot measure utility. Okay, so this is the second feature of utility. After this which comes is that, just a second. After this, the next point is that utility is relative. Now, what does this utility is relative means? It varies from, like the subjective point, the relative point is also similar. This point says that utility is relative. It varies from one person to another. Okay. And after this a very important feature of utility is that utility is different from usefulness. Now, what does this mean? See, as I told you that utility means the total amount of satisfaction which you gain from something. So it can be said that how much something is useful. Okay, but it does not mean whether something is useful or not. We are not calculating whether something is useful or not. We are calculating how much something is useful or not. So there is a difference whether something is useful or not and how much something is useful or not. There is a big difference between these two things. So you need to keep in mind that utility is not different from usefulness. Utility is different from usefulness. Utility means the amount of satisfaction which you gain from something, but usefulness means that whether that thing is helpful to you or not. Like I am telling it by an example. You all might have heard of karele ka juice. Okay, but how many people like that juice? Nobody likes it. I guess nobody likes it. So if I am made to drink that karele ka juice, so I won't get any kind of utility from it. Why? Because I don't like it. If I drink karele ka juice, my mouth is going to be here and there, all kind of expressions on my face, because I don't like that thing. So that thing is not giving utility to me. But it does that mean that that thing is not useful? It is not. That is useful. That can be used. That has some positive effects. So there is a difference between utility and usefulness. Something might give you utility, but that does not mean that thing is useful. Or something might be useful, but that might not give you any kind of utility. Like if we say that people who drink alcohol, is alcohol useful in any way? So the answer is no. Yes, if it is in a very minute manner, then it is useful. Yes, but means if it is very less means not at all, only a few sample, so that is good. But if you drink bottles and bottles of alcohol and say it is useful, it is not so. So alcohol is something which is not useful, but still people who drink alcohol, they get some kind of utility from that. So utility is different from usefulness. A thing might be useful but not be giving utility, and a thing might not be useful but still it can give utility. Okay, and Mm. And that next one is no moral or legal connotation. Means utility does not, it is in this, it is similar to this point only, that utility does not take into consideration that whether something is good or bad. Utility is not morally or legally dependent. Okay, it is not that if something is legal, then only that will give you utility. Like ganja is illegal, but still people who consume ganja, they get all sorts of utility from that. Okay, so there is a difference between utility and usefulness. And utility is not that utility always comes from that thing which is good. No, utility does not know whether something is bad or whether something is good. Okay, so these were the characteristics of utility. After this comes two very important topics. Okay, so I would like to explain it to you, but before that I would like to clear something. We read in the features of utility that utility is non measurable. We cannot measure utility. Okay, and yes, this is true, and yes, this is obviously correct, that we cannot measure utility, but still for our benefit we can give a rating to something. Like you might have seen that whenever there is a reality show, so in the reality show, when the when the performer performs his act, after that the judges give their score to that, to the person over there. So what is the score based upon? The score is based upon the utility from the performer's act. How much satisfaction did they gain from that act, or how much appealing was that act to them? It totally depends upon that. Okay, so for example, there are five contestants: A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, now they performed after a judge. So it might happen that A had done a splendid performance, so he got 10 out of 10. B got 8 out of 10. C got 7 out of 10. D got 9 out of 10, and E got 5 out of 10. He did the worst. So in, so we cannot say that we are actually measuring utility. Okay, we cannot say that, but still in some manner we just give a rating to that. So this is what I am talking about, that utility is non measurable. Why? Because that is a qualitative thing. You cannot measure something which is qualitative. You can measure only those things which are quantitative, but you can give a rating to that qualitative thing, and that is what I wanted to make you understand. Okay, these performers, they performed in front of a judge, and they gave satisfaction to the judge, they gave utility to the judge, but the judge cannot exactly measure how much satisfaction did they give him. So but he can give them a rating. So so this is what basically the rating is. Okay, now so based on these, utility can be divided into two types. Utility is basically of two types. One is the total utility. Okay, one is total utility, and the next one is marginal utility. Okay, now I would like to call it by an example. Suppose you are on your I'm sorry, I'm not feeling good right now. Suppose you are in your friend's wedding and you are eating, and at that time only your friend arrives at that spot, and he sees you eating. So he offers you he offers you one rasagulla. Okay, so and he asks you how much satisfaction did it give you, or simply you he gives you rasagulla and you are asked to rate it. Okay, means how much good or bad you are feeling, you have to rate that thing. So when you ate the first rasagulla, so as it was the first piece, therefore you will have the maximum satisfaction. And we know it in all cases that when we consume something after a very long time and it is the first thing, then that first piece gives us the maximum satisfaction. Like if you after 15 or days or 1 month, if you consume a rasagulla, then it will give you the immense pleasure, it will give you the immense satisfaction. So if you consume one rasagulla, you and when your friend asks it how is it, so you might tell him that it is 10 out of 10. Okay, it is 10 out of 10. Then afterwards he gives you two rasagullas, means the second one. So now you have consumed two rasagullas. Okay, now after consuming the second rasagulla, you might not you won't have that same feeling which was in the case of the first one. It is natural that the first one gives the maximum satisfaction. So when you are consuming the second rasgulla, he might ask you कैसा लगा, and you will say ठीक है but उतना भी अच्छा नहीं है, 9. Then he gives you the third rasgulla, so you give it an 8. Then he gives you the fourth rasgulla, then you give it a 7. But when you have consumed 4 rasagullas, then now you cannot take any more rasagullas with you. Okay, so when you consume the 5th rasagulla, it might happen that your stomach is full and now you are not wanting to eat any extra one, but still he was your friend, तो दोस्त की शादी में तो खाना ही होगा. So you ate one, you consumed the 5th rasagulla, and this time you told him इस बार अच्छा नहीं लगा, 4. Then he gave you the 6th one, you gave him 2. And when he gave you the 7th one, you gave him 0. Why? Because when you consume the 7th rasagulla, you are like और नहीं, no one. But still it was your friend's wedding, so you consumed the 8th one also. And when you put that 8th one in your mouth, you vomited all that thing. So instead of getting any kind of satisfaction, you gained negative satisfaction, means you did not gain any kind of satisfaction. So this time you might say I did not like it. 0 तो छोड़ो, मैं इसे -2 यहाँ पे देना चाहता हूँ. Okay, so this is the rating. Okay, now so for the first rasagulla the utility is 10, for the second one it is 9, the third one is 8, the fourth one is 7, fifth one is 4, sixth one is 2, seventh one is 0, and eighth one is -2. Now if you just add all these, if you add these, then it is known as total utility. Means after consuming a certain amount of a commodity, how much total utility did you have? That is what we call total utility. Okay, and what do you call marginal utility? So marginal utility means that first you consumed, you might have heard of cumulative frequency. Okay, so if we want to calculate the total utility which we are getting over here, so we can do it in this manner only. Just a second. Yes, for the first one it will be 10, then it will be 10 plus 9, 19, then afterwards it will be 19 plus 8, 27, then it is going to be 27 plus 7 34, then after that it is going to be 34 plus 4 38, afterwards it is going to be 38 plus 2 40, then it is going to be 40 plus 0 40, then it is going to be 40 plus minus 2 means 38. So the last one is your total. So this 38 is your total utility. But what is marginal utility? Now marginal utility means after the consumption of a specific amount of commodity, when you consume one extra commodity, then how much satisfaction you gain, that is what we call marginal utility. Like here you were at 10, so since this is the first one, you won't get any kind of marginal utility. Why? Because marginal utility means that the apart means leaving behind the previous one, when you consumed one extra unit, then how much utility did you get? So since it was the first one, so you had not consumed any extra unit before this, so here we cannot say any kind of marginal utility. But when you consumed that second one, so it went from 10 to 19. So by how much did it increase? It increased by 9. Similarly, when it went from 19 to 27, how much did it increase? It increased by 8. Then afterwards, now see, at this stage you have consumed 8, means you have got 8 marginal utilities. So you have consumed 3 pieces of the rasagulla, but after the 3 pieces are consumed, when you consume the fourth one, then how much utility did you get? So you got 34. Now at 3 the total utility was 27, and at 4 the total utility is 34. So how much extra did you get? You got 27 minus 34 minus 27, that is 7. Okay, now when you consume the 5 rasagullas, so you have already consumed 4, now you are coming to the fifth one. So when you had consumed 4, you had 34, and when you have consumed 5, you have 38. So how much extra did you gain? You got 3. Okay, now leaving behind 5, when you moved to the 6th one, how much did you get? 40. So it becomes 40 minus 38, 2. Now leaving behind 6, when you move to the 7th one, you got 40, which means 40 minus 40 is equal to 0. And when you move from the 7th to the 8th, so you get minus 2, which means 38 minus 40, which is equal to minus 2. Okay, so these values which we are getting, these are nothing but just marginal utility. So we have learned about 2 types of utility, which is total utility and marginal utility. Now what is total utility? After consuming a certain quantity of a commodity, the total satisfaction which we get, that is known as total utility. And what is marginal utility? For each extra piece consumed, how much extra utility do we get? That is known as marginal utility. Okay, so this is what we call total utility and marginal utility. Okay, so hope you have understood what is total utility and what is marginal utility. So in simple words, utility means how much satisfaction have you got by consuming something. Okay, and the satisfaction can be divided into two types. One is known as the total utility, means after consuming a certain amount, after consuming 4 to 5 rasagullas, how much total satisfaction you got, that is what we call the total utility. And what is marginal utility, for each every extra piece, how much extra satisfaction you got, that is what we call marginal utility. So hope you have understood what is total and what is marginal. Okay, so this was the basic thing which I needed to explain in the context of utility, that what is utility, what are the features of utility, and what are the types of utility. Okay, now okay, so I'll stop over here. We'll continue the remaining portion in the upcoming videos. Okay, so do take very good care of yourselves. Have a very nice day. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye. Jai Hind.